أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Jazakumullah everyone for your patience. I was just working through the mic list to see which students should be selected for today. So I'm going to start off by selecting A5127. Assalamu alaikum, A5127. A5127, are you there? Okay, let's try A5155. Assalamu alaikum, A5155.
Assalamu alaikum.
Are you able to hear me okay, and can you see the screen okay? I think you A5155, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, great. Okay, so could you please read the prayer that's highlighted over here?
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi al-mini ma huwa khairun indaka.
Okay, just read this word one more time for me, please.
Rabbi al-mini.
Okay, so this you have the lam with a shadda, and then this is a meme sakin, so it's got meme with a scorn, and this is noon. So all together, it's going to be alimni.
Al-limni.
Good. Rabbi alimni.
Rabbi al-limni.
Okay. And could you also read the prayer that's below?
Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antas sami'ul alim.
Okay. And could you please read both translations?
O my Lord, teach me what is best for me in your knowledge. O Lord, accept from us, for you are all healing, all knowing.
Okay, Jazakallah. Thank you very much. A5155. Okay, so the lesson for today is going to be the final rule, which is in the 20 most common errors in Tilawat. So this is rule number 17, which we're going to be covering. And the rule reads, do not pronounce an alif if it appears before a small noon in continuous reading. So you can see over here in the examples, we've got the small noon, and this small noon, the correct term for this is noon qutni. So try to remember that terminology. If not, you can refer it to as a small noon, but this is what we call noon qutni. And what this rule is basically telling us is that you can see highlighted here is the alif madda joined to the meme. So when you are reading continuously without making any pauses, so no stops are going to be made when we read this word. When that happens, this alif, which appears before the small noon, it's going to be dropped. So you're not going to hear it in the pronunciation. So what that means is that you're just going to hear the fatha, which is on the meme over here. So rather than it being qawma nillahu, it's going to be qawma. So qawma nillahu. And so you can basically see that the meme is short, and this alif madda, it's not heard in recitation. Qawmanillahu. The second thing to remember is that when you are reading continuously without making any stops, this small noon is also going to be pronounced, and that's going to be different to a different case that we're going to look at. But just remember two things: the alif before the noon qutni, it's going to be dropped and not heard in pronunciation, and when you are reading continuously as well, you will hear the small noon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this time from Nasirat. Let's try N6174. Assalamu alaikum, N6174.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Your mic is working okay now?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant.
The window was broken, that's why it didn't work.
Okay, that's fine, no worries. So according to this rule over here, which letter is not going to be heard in the recitation?
Is it Alif?
Alif, excellent. So this alif over here, which appears before the small noon. And do you remember what I said is the correct term for the small noon?
No.
So this is noon qutni. Can you say that? Noon qutni.
Noon Goodney.
Good. Noon qutni. Okay, good. So how would you read this if you're not going to hear this alif in the recitation?
Is it lava? Lavan. One.
So remember, you're going to hear the noon as well. So you're going to be hearing that
Okay.
in the recitation.
Lavanu. Su.
Okay. So first of all, over here, what letter is in the middle over
Is
here?
it Ha?
Ha, good. So when you read it, it will be lahwa. So you really want to hear the ha in the middle. So just read that word, lahwa.
Lahwa.
Good, lahwa. And as we said, this alif, we're not going to prolong this, so it's not going to be heard. So it will be lahwa. And then can you see under the noon, what stroke is under there? Let me just zoom in.
Is it
Is it fatha, dhamma, or kasra?
is it Kasra?
It is, yeah. So it's a kasra, which means the noon is going to have an e sound. So it will be lahwa ninfaddu. So this noon with kasra, you're joining to this noon sakin. So when you join it, it will be nin, the sound. Lahwa ninfaddu. Can you read the whole thing?
Lahwa Ninfaddu.
Faddu, good. Okay. And how about in the last example? So again, you've got your noon qutni here. Which letter is not going to be heard in the recitation?
Is it Lam?
Not lam, so this is the lam. What's attached to the lam?
Alif.
Alif, good. So remember, according to the rule, do not pronounce the alif if it appears before the small noon in continuous reading. So if we are not going to make any pauses here, how are we going to read the full word?
Masala Nil Kum.
So this here, this is an example of a waw lean, a lean letter. And what you just have to remember is when you have a letter which has a fatha and it's followed by waw sakin, so waw with sukoon, or ya sakin, it's going to be a very soft blended sound. So it won't be qu, because qu would mean that there's a dhamma on the qaf, but the sound is going to be qawmi. Can you just say that word? Al-qawmi.
Al-Qawmi.
Good. And if it was a ya there, it would be a qay. Okay, so qaw and qay. So those are your lean letters. Okay, so if you're going to read it completely, mathalanil qawmi.
Masala Nil Qawmi.
Okay, brilliant. So according to this rule, just summarize it for me. What two things do you have to remember? First of all, regarding the alif, what do you have to remember if it becomes before a small noon?
You don't read it.
Excellent. And what else do you have to remember to read when you're reciting it without making any stops?
The noon.
Excellent. Brilliant. Okay, Jazakillah. Thank you very much. And this time, so what we'll do is we are going to progress from this rule a little bit. Before we do that, there is one person. Okay, no, so there are a few people. There is Hassan Shakur and Tawheed. Please, I'm going to put you in the waiting room. Please, can you write your correct ID, and then I'll admit you back into the classroom. So it's Hassan Shakur, which I've put in the waiting room, and Tawheed as well. Please rename yourselves with your correct ID, and then I will admit you back. Okay, I'm just going to check. Okay, A5130 has a question. Assalamualaikum. A5130, what would you like to ask?
Walaikum assalam.
How
Do you know the rule that applies with the do not pronounce the alif before the noon?
Yeah.
But on the last one, masa, how come we said the lam, but we don't say the alif, but they're joined together?
They are joined together, but that's just the style that you write the lam and the alif. They're individual letters, but it's just when you write Arabic, that's how it appears. Does that make sense? So they're separate letters, even though they're joined together, they're still going to be individual letters.
Okay.
Okay.
Jazakallah.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so I want you to bear this in mind, bear in mind what we've just discussed, because we're going to move on to something a little bit more advanced. So it will require you to still remember what we've talked about here. So what we're going to look at is, if I go over here, so we're focusing on the second half of this slide, just at the bottom. Okay, so you can see over here, the previous rule that we discussed, that is regarding if you're going to read continuously, so if you're not going to make any stops. So the second case that you have to consider is if you are going to make a pause. So you can see over here, we've got khayru, and if we were going to continuously read, you would hear the small noon in pronunciation, khayru nitma'anna. Khayru nitma'anna. So you can see quite clearly that the noon is heard. If we're going to make a pause, the pause will occur before the small noon over here. So in the word, khayru will become khayr. When we stop, the dhamma will take the sukoon. This is part of our second lesson, which we'll move on to next week. But just bear in mind, if we pause there, khayru becomes khair. So what you're going to be left with is a small noon and a blank alif. And when we restart, so we're not going to go back and read just in this example. What we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to carry on just from here. So if you are going to restart, this small noon, it's not going to be heard in the recitation. So if it's continuous, you will read it. If it's not continuous, then this noon is not going to be heard again. So the next thing that you have to consider is what the next letter is, and you'll see that the next letter is going to be an alif, a blank alif. Now this blank alif has a very specific name to it, and we call it Hamzatul Wasl. I'll just move to the slide so you can have a look at the spelling. So this blank alif, which is an unvoweled letter, so it carries no stroke of fatha, dhamma or kasra, it is known as Hamzatul Wasl. So this Hamzatul Wasl, we basically have to figure out what stroke to apply onto this alif so that we can continue our recitation. So we've stopped here, we need to figure out what stroke to put on the blank alif so we can start again. And the way that we do that is you have to look at the letters which follow after the blank alif or the Hamzatul Wasl. So you can see, for example, over here, we have stopped here, sawa'a becomes sawa'. We are not going to read the small noon when we restart again, which leaves us with this blank alif, and we have to figure out what stroke will go on there. So the first thing that you do, you look out for a lam sakin, so a lam which carries sukoon, such as over here, or you want to look for a lam mushaddad, so a lam which has this shadda sign over here. And if you have that, so if you have lam sakin or lam mushaddad, the alif is going to take a fatha stroke, so that it will be an ah sound. So when you restart over here, it won't be nil akifu, because remember the small noon isn't going to be read. It will be al akifu, because the alif will be given a fatha stroke. So you're going to apply that because of the lam sakin or the lam mushaddad which follows afterwards. So that is the first scenario to consider. First thing you look out for is your lam sakin or lam mushaddad. So if it isn't a lam sakin or lam mushaddad, you then have to look for the first letter which carries a stroke. So we call that a mutaharrik letter, a letter which carries a stroke. So when we say mutaharrik letter, that does not include letters which carry the sukoon. So you can see in this example here, this sukoon means that this is a muted letter. There is no movement on this letter because it's just got a sukoon. It's not vibrated in any way, such as, so if you see with fatha, dhamma, kasra, the letter will have an a, u, or e sound to it. But with a sukoon, it's a muted letter. It has no movement, if you like, if that's an easy way to say it. So this does not count as the first mutaharrik letter. So we move on to the next letter and we see that mim does have a stroke. It's got the stroke of fatha. So when the first mutaharrik letter carries the stroke of fatha, or if it's got a kasra, this blank alif will also take the kasra stroke. So if you're restarting, it will be itma'anna. So E sound will be applied, itma'anna, and that was how you're going to restart the word. So to recap, we've got lam sakin or lam mushaddad. That is going to be a fatha stroke on the alif. If the first letter carrying a stroke has a fatha or a kasra, the alif is also going to take a kasra. So that's case number 2. In the final scenario, exactly the same. You look for the first mutaharrik stroke, mutaharrik letter, so the first letter carrying a stroke. If that stroke is dhamma, then the alif is also going to take a dhamma. So it would be, if I go over here, we've got this example. So the alif here has been given the stroke of dhamma because the first letter which carries a fatha, dhamma or kasra, it's got a dhamma, so the alif also takes a dhamma. We'll go through this in a moment, but I think the best way will be if we go through each of the examples and then practice them. So what I'm going to do is, let me select a student. Before I do that, okay, so 3 students that have got haven't got the correct IDs, you've been let back in the classroom. If you are, for whatever reason, struggling to find your ID, please can you get in touch with the department on this email. So the email is info, info at nqc.org.uk. So info@nqc.org.uk. Please write your full name, which Jamaat that you're from, and just get some verification about what your ID is, because I don't have permission to leave you in the classroom if you don't have the correct ID, because we've got no way of identifying you. So please email info@nqc.org.uk. It's the same email that you would have got a registration email with. So please contact them and get your correct ID. But for now, I will have to remove you from the classroom. Okay, so continuing with the lesson. Okay, so let me select a student this time from a file again, and I'm looking for A5131. Assalamu alaikum, A5131.
Walaikum salam.
Are you following the lesson okay so far? Do you have any questions?
No thanks.
Okay, that's fine. So if we just go back over this example, so if you were just going to carry on without stopping, how do you think you'll read this word?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم خير نطمئن.
Excellent, very good. So if you're going to stop over here, what stroke will you apply on the alif, and how will you decide what stroke to give to it? So the first question is, are we going to hear the small noon in the recitation?
No.
Good. So when we're restarting, we won't hear that. If we look at the next letter, is that going to help us out, or do we have to keep looking?
That's going to help us out.
It's not quite going to help us out because this is a sakin letter. It's got a sukoon, so it's not helpful in helping us decide which stroke to put on it. So what we have to do is we have to go to this letter, which is the meme. And what stroke is on the meme?
A fatha.
Very good. So can you, by noticing that, do you know what stroke will be applied on the alif?
The fatha.
It won't be fatha, so I think that's like the common confusion. It will be a fatha if you remember the first case I discussed, lam sakin and lam mushaddad. If they come after the alif, then yes, it will take a fatha. But if it's a fatha here or a kasra, so one coming underneath, this alif is going to take a kasra as well. Okay, so how do you think you'll read this word?
khairu nitma'anna.
Very so that's if you're continuing, yeah. But if you just stopped here at khair and say you have to restart, you have to think about which stroke will be on the alif, and you said it will be a kasra. So how will you read this?
Khairu.
So don't read this part because we've stopped here, yeah? So you don't have to read this word. Just restarting from the alif, how are you going to read it?
Itma'anna.
Excellent, very good. So if we're continuously reading, it's fine. We will read everything except if there's an alif before. But if we've stopped, we're not reading the small noon. We're just going to be reading this and we're going to apply the right stroke on the alif. Okay, how about for the next example? So if you're reading it continuously, how will you read this word?
Fitnatu ninqalaba.
Very good. Fitnatun inqalaba. So if you stopped here, so you've stopped at fitnatu, it becomes fitnah. Now again, you've got the small noon, which isn't going to be heard when you restart again. Next, you've got the blank alif. So what do you think you're going to look at to find out what stroke to put on the alif?
Kasra.
It will be kasra. Excellent. So you've looked to the next letter. It's not going to help us because it's a sakin letter. The next one is the qaf, which carries a fatha. And we know if it's a fatha or a kasra, alif is going to take a kasra. So how will you reread that word when you're starting again?
Inqalaba.
Excellent, very good. Let's move to the next example. So say you've stopped here, sawa'a becomes sawa', and again we're not reading the small noon when we restart. We have alif this time. What follows the alif? What's after that?
Lam.
Lam, very good. And what's above the lam?
Sukun.
Sukun, excellent. So we know that when we have a lam sakin, or if we have a lam mushaddad, the alif is going to take which stroke? This is the first case that we talked about.
Kasra.
Not kasra. So kasra will just be with if fatha or kasra is the first stroke carrying letter. Remember with lam sakin or lam mushaddad, that's going to be a fatha on the alif. Okay, so it will be al-akifu. Can you read that?
Al-akifu.
Very good, excellent. Okay, Jazakallah. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask?
No thanks.
Okay, that's fine. Jazakallah. Thank you very much. So it does take a little bit of practice to get your head around it. I think first of all, it's easy to assume that if the first letter carrying the fatha stroke, the first stroke carrying letter carries fatha, it can be easy to think that's also a fatha. But remember, if it's a fatha or a kasra, it's a kasra. If it's lam sakin or lam mushaddad, it's a fatha. And if the first letter carrying the stroke is dhamma, alif is also a dhamma. Let's do the next three examples and then we will move on to the next part of this rule. So this time I'm going to select N6 130. Assalamualaikum. N6 130 or A1162. Okay, they don't seem to be responding, so let's have N6140 instead.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Your N6140, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. So, if you bear in mind everything that we've discussed so far, so over here, if we stop, so you can see here, we've come to the end of the verse over here, so Qadiru becomes Qadir. How do you think you're going to restart this verse?
With Alazi.
Yeah, excellent. So correctly, you didn't read this small noon, which is very good. When you're restarting, we don't read it. And also correctly, you put the fatha stroke because the next letter is a lam mushaddad. So very good. How about on this one? So again, we've stopped here, lumazah, and we're starting the next verse. So what do you think you're going to apply on the alif?
A fatha,
Fatha, excellent. And why do you give it a fatha?
because it has a lam shadda.
Lam mushaddad, excellent, very good. Do you have any other questions about this rule?
Miss Auntie, can my sister have a turn, please?
Yeah, sure, that's fine. So let me, what I'll do is, let's go to this one then. So is that N6144?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So if you look over here, first of all, read it without stopping. How would you read this?
بغلام مسموط
So this one over here, if it's got the two dots above it, then it will be the ta, but it's just a plain ha. Okay, so it will be ismuhu. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, good. So I want you to just tell me, so we stop here, imagine we stop here. What do you think you'll have to do to figure out what to place on this alif?
You have to look at the next letter from after the sukoon.
Yep, very good. And what's the stroke on that dhamma? Oh, sorry, I've just told you. So that is the dhamma stroke. Yeah. So what letter do you think would be applied on that alif?
Is it going to be a dhamma?
It's going to be a dhamma, yes. We are going to come back to this because this, although the thought process that you had is correct, this is actually an exception to the rule. So we're going to come back to this later, but let's have a go at another example. If I just pull up some from the Holy Quran, 1 second. Okay, so how about over here? I've just taken, it doesn't necessarily have to be the small noon. Just for the sake of practice, I've identified some words that have got just blank alifs, just so you can practice applying the right stroke. So over here, we've got this word, thumma stawa. Say you want to figure out what stroke to apply in this alif, what do you think you're going to have to do, and which stroke do you think you'll give to it?
Would you look at the ta and give it a kasra?
Excellent, very good. And if this was a kasra as well over here, what stroke would go on the alif?
Fatha.
Not fatha. So remember, this is fatha at the moment, and you correctly said alif will take a kasra. What if this first stroke was a kasra as well? What would come on the alif?
Fatha.
Not fatha. So fatha will just be with the lam sakin over here.
Is it going to be a dhamma?
Not dhamma either. So dhamma would be if this stroke was a dhamma as well. So fatha and kasra on the first letters carrying a stroke will also be a kasra on the alif. Okay? So let me just go back to this one. So we've got blank alif will always take fatha if the next letter is lam sakin or lam mushaddad. So that's the nice and easy one. So that to help you eliminate the process, that's the first thing to look out for. So if it's not lam sakin and it's not lam mushaddad, the next thing you have to do is look at the first letter which carries a stroke. So if it's fatha or if it's kasra, it will take kasra, and if the first letter carrying a stroke is dhamma, it's also going to take a dhamma. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. So let's try a different example. How about over here? So you've got the blank alif here, and then you've got the rest of your word. What do you think is going to be going on the blank alif?
Is it going to be a dhamma?
Say that again, sorry, the voice cut
Is
out.
it going to be a fatha?
Fatha, excellent, very good. So again, you've got lam sakin, so that's going to take a fatha. What about in this example here?
Fatha as well.
Yeah, excellent. So you've got lam mushaddad, so it will be al-umuru and al-layla. Excellent. Okay, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Jazakumullah to both of you. Thank you. N6139 and A5138, do you have a question?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
On the exercise that we have just done, I have a question on that.
Okay, let me go back. Oh, 1 second. On this exercise?
Yes. On the first example,
Yeah.
would you say khayru or khayr?
Okay, so there's two different cases. The first is if you're not going to stop. So that's up to you. So this might be in the middle of a verse and you just want to carry on reading. So you might, when you're carrying on reading, it's going to be khayru nitma'anna. So all of the words are going to be pronounced in that. The second case is, say you run out of breath for whatever reason and you decide to stop there. The way that you stop in this word, the dhamma bit takes a sukoon, so it will become khair. But this is something that we're going to be looking at in our next lesson. So don't worry too much about that. But yes, if you stop there, that would be khair. And then you'd restart and figure out the correct stroke. So that would be itma anna. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jazakallah.
I think, okay. A5160, you also have a question?
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam. What's your question?
If there isn't a known cookney,
Yeah.
then does the rule still apply?
It really depends. So the exercise that I'm doing over here, this isn't necessarily because there's a nun qutni. It's just to get you to practice how to correctly apply the rule. So like for example over here, you wouldn't even need to apply the rule because it wouldn't make sense to just make a stop here and then restart because you've reached the end of the verse. Same over here, you wouldn't really make a stop over here and then restart. It's just for the sake of practice. So to be honest, I would say consider it only when you're looking at the Nun Qutni rule. This is because it's quite hard to find lots of examples of Nun Qutni in the Quranic text in this part of the Holy Quran. I've just done these for random words that have got blank alifs just to help you practice the exercise. Is that okay?
If there was a, sorry, it's Nabil's mom, just wanted to ask, if there was a toy, like a stop, then what would we do? In that would the rule apply, as in the stroke would be the stroke how you're explaining, i.e. with the mutaharrik letter, so we'd be looking at the stroke of the mutaharrik letter.
If there was a, so you mean like this stop over here?
Yeah, and after that if there was an alif.
Alif, yeah. I mean, you're unlikely to find examples. I've not found too many where there's a thought and then there's the next word is starting with a nun qutni. So you're not really likely to find those examples. I've not come across any. I can have a look and get back to you. But as far as I'm aware, that you wouldn't even have to apply that in that situation.
So if there wasn't a nun qutni and there was a pause sign, and after that there was an alif and the next letter had perhaps a shadda on, will that be the case, or would we be looking at then the mutaharrik letter? Sorry, not a shadda, but a jazm rather.
Let me just have a look. The thing is, it's the exercise that we're doing is hypothetical, so I can't think off the top of my head of an example where that would be the case. It'd be very unlikely to start with a blank alif after a ta. But what I can do is I can have a look tonight, hopefully, and then I can ask tomorrow's teacher if she can just get back to you about that. Is that all right?
Sure. So shall we conclude for now that this rule only applies to when there's a nun qutni?
Yeah. If you say that for now, and then inshallah I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Sure. Thank you. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah. Okay, and N6159, you also have a question. Okay, N6159, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, if there's a noon, if there's a alif and then a noon qutni and then another alif, how would you read that?
Alif, a noon qutni, and another alif. Again, I would have to have a look to see if I can find practical examples because that's the best way to demonstrate it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll get back to you on both of those 2 points, okay?
Okay.
Okay, Jazakallah.
Jazakallah. God.
Okay, what we'll do is, let me just go back through this slide over here. So just to summarize, lam sakin lam mushaddad taking a fatha stroke, if the first mutaharrik letter has fatha or kasra, it will always also take a kasra. And also, if it's the first stroke carrying a letter, first letter carrying a stroke, sorry, is a dhamma, alif will also take a dhamma. Now, I want to go on to this slide over here, and this is essentially exceptions to the rule I've just mentioned. So these 6 words, these are detailed on page 112 of Talimul-Quran. And what you basically have to memorize is these 6 cases. When these words appear, irrespective of what letter follows the alif or what stroke is on the first mutaharrik letter, that will always be irrelevant for these 6 words because they will always take the kasra stroke. So these are 6 exceptions that I would really recommend that you memorize, and just remember that these always take a kasra no matter what follows it, the alif. So the reason I mentioned that final example in that exercise is because we have this word over here, ismun, and we have over here, so it's used in this instance. This was actually pointed out to me by a student in the last course. I hadn't actually picked this up, but he said this is actually an example of the exceptions, and for this reason we will be doing a kasra stroke on this alif. So the kasra will be applied on the alif because it's an exception. So bighulami becomes bighulam, stop there, and then ismuhu Yahya. So this alif will take a kasra. So I hadn't picked that up, which is why it's really important that not only do you get to grips with how to apply the rule, but also try to remember the exceptions to the rule as well. So as I mentioned, imshu, ituni, ibnu, imru'un, ismun, and iqdhu. These are the 6 exceptions to the rule. Okay, so what we will do is we will continue with a few more examples to practice from. Let's have a look over here. So let me select another student. Okay, let's have A5 4137. Assalamualaikum. A5 137.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Looking at this example over here, could you tell me, just for the sake of practice again, there would be no sense in really stopping there and then restarting, just so you can practice applying that rule. What stroke do you think would be on the alif here?
Dhamma.
Not dhamma. So remember, before you look at this letter, the next letter is a lam sakin, and we know that lam sakin or lam mushaddad, that's going to be a fatha stroke. Yeah. So this is going to take a fatha on the alif. So how will you read that word?
Al-Husna.
Excellent. Al-Husna. Very good. How about over here? So we've got the same case. We've got a blank alif. Again, this is just for the sake of practice. What would you apply on the alif here?
Kasra.
It wouldn't be a kasra. So remember, lam sakin. So lam with a sukoon or lam with a shadda, that's going to take a fatha stroke. Yeah, so that's the first thing to look out for, is if it's a lam sakin or a lam mushaddad, it's going to be a. So fatha on the alif. Al-mu'minina. Okay, so let's try a different example. Okay, how about over here? So you've got alif again over here, and the next one is nun sakin. Next one is dha with a dhamma. So what do you have to look for first of all? What's your first step?
The tha. No, the tha.
Excellent. So you've seen that the nun sakin isn't going to help us. We're going to look at the za, and it's got the dhamma stroke. So this, how are you going to read this word?
On zararuna.
Read it one more time. Remember the dha is a dhamma, so it will be unzuruna.
Umruzuna.
Unzuruna.
Unzurura.
Okay, good. sorry, I forgot to make the noon long because it's alif madda. Unzuruna, so 2 seconds there. How about over here? So again, this is a hypothetical example just so you can practice, because we've got the pause here, so there would be no reason to really pause here. But if you wanted to figure out what stroke to apply so you can read that word individually without attaching it to the previous one, what are you going to look out for first? So the next letter we've got is a ra sakin. Is that going to be helpful to us?
No.
Okay, so which one are you looking at next?
The gym.
Excellent. And the jim has a kasra stroke. So what do you think the alif is going to have?
A kasra.
Very good. So how will you read this word?
Irji'u.
Very good. Irji'u. Excellent. Okay, let's try this one over here. So, okay, so we've got blank alif followed by ra sakin. This time this ta is carrying a fatha. So what do you think this letter would be? What stroke would the alif take?
Fatha.
Not fatha. So remember, fatha is lam sakin or lam mushaddad.
Kasra.
Kasra, very good. So if the next mutaharrik letter has got fatha or kasra, it's going to be kasra. So how would you read this?
Irtab. Tum.
Very good. Irtabtum. Excellent. Okay. Jazakumullah. Thank you very much.
Jazakillah.
Jazakallah. Let's have a different student this time. Let's have N6 150.
Sorry,
Aslan
because of next
N6150.
week. Listen, but I don't understand what tomorrow is.
N6150, are you there?
I don't know if we have a spelling.
Okay, let's try someone else. Let's have N6154. N6154, Assalamualaikum. N6154? No? Okay, let's have N6134 this time. N6134, Assalamualaikum. N6134. Okay, not there again. Okay, let's see who's got their hand up. Let's have, okay, N6135.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam. N6135, could you please read, so this example over here, we've got the alif followed by lam mushaddad. So what do you think would be applied on the alif? What stroke?
Fatha.
Excellent. So how would you read the word?
Allazina.
Excellent. And so we have another example over here. You have blank alif followed by lam sakin. So what do you think you would apply? What stroke would be on the alif?
A kasra.
Not kasra. So remember, if you have lam sakin or lam mushaddad. So in both of these cases, it would be which stroke?
Fatha.
Excellent. So read the whole word.
Al-Haqi.
Al-Haqqi. So remember, we have a shadda on the qaf. Al-Haqqi.
Al-Haqi.
Excellent, very good. And over here, so we have blank alif followed by lam sakin. So what stroke would be on the alif there?
I think it'll be Fatha.
Very good, well done. So lam sakin again, so that will be fatha. And how will you read it?
Al-Kitaba.
Excellent, very good. Okay, Jazakumullah, thank you very much. N6135. Let's try this time. A5133. Assalamu alaikum. A5133. A5133. Okay, how about A5143? A51343, are you there? A5143? No, okay. A5122. Assalamu alaikum. A5122. A5122, can you hear me?
What's going on? It's last
A5122. No, okay. Okay, so not getting a lot of responses. Okay, A5. Assalamu alaikum. A5123.
Buffalo soldier.
It's you. A5123.
Hello?
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Are you A5123?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, you are A5123, correct?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Have you been able to follow the lesson so far?
Yes.
Yeah, kind of. Okay. So we've got an example here of the small noon at the start of a new verse. So based on the rules that we discussed, can you figure out what stroke is going to come up? So we're not going to read the small noon, we know that, but then we're left with the blank alif. So what stroke do you think is going to appear on the blank alif? Fatha, Dhamma or Kasra?
Fatha Dhamma?
Or Kasra? Which of the three do you think will appear on the alif?
Oh yeah, Kasra.
Not Kasra. So the reason it's not Kasra is because we have to first look at what's following that alif. So the thing that comes next is Lam Mushaddad. So if it's a Lam Mushaddad, or for example here, we've got a Lam Sakin carrying a Sukoon. If it's either of those two, then it's going to be a Fatha, yeah. But if it isn't, then we have to look at the next letter which carries a stroke. And if the next letter carrying a stroke is Fatha or Kasra, then it will be Kasra. If it's Dhamma, the alif would also be a Dhamma. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? A5123, do you understand that?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, good. So if we look at this example over here, again, just for the sake of practice, we've got a blank alif here, and we're followed by a letter which carries a fatha. So that's the first letter which carries a stroke. So based on that, remembering if it's got fatha or kasra underneath, what stroke is going to be applied on the alif?
Fatha.
Not fatha. So remember, fatha is only for lam sakin or lam mushaddad. So it's not lam sakin or lam mushaddad. So it's a fatha. What do you think is going to be there? We've ruled out that it's not going to be a fatha stroke. So you've got a choice between kasra or dhamma.
It's Kasra.
Kasra, excellent. So the reason for that is because that is the first stroke carrying letter, and that's a fatha. So how would you read this word?
Attaba'uhu.
So that was incorrect because you read it with a fatha. So remember, this is a kasra we're applying. So read that one more time with a kasra.
Ittaba'uhum.
Excellent. Ittaba'uhu, very good. So how about over here? Let me just highlight the full thing. So we've got another example of Noon Qutni. We've got the blank alif. Say you stopped off there just for the sake of practice. Say you stopped there. How would you figure out what to apply on this blank alif here?
You would look at the you would look at the wouldn't it be fatha?
It wouldn't be fatha. So remember, lam sakin or lam mushaddad. If those come after the alif, then yes, it would be fatha. But if it's not those two, you have to look at the first letter with a stroke. So we've got the stroke of fatha or kasra means kasra. Dhamma means dhamma on the alif. So because this is fatha, what's the stroke that's going to appear under the alif or above the alif?
It will be kasra.
Excellent, very good. So how would you read this full word?
نبتدعوها.
So remember, when we, if we're not reading it continuously, so say for whatever reason you stopped there, you wouldn't read the small noon when you restarted. Okay, if you're going to read it وَرَهْبَانِيَّةً ابْتَدَعُوهَا, if you're going to read it carrying it on, then you would read the noon. But because we're practicing how to restart when we've stopped, you're not going to hear that small noon. Okay, so you're just going to hear the kasra ibtada'uha.
Okay.
Okay, how about this example over here? So again, we've got a blank alif and we've got ba with a sukoon. This time the next stroke is a kasra. So what stroke do you think it's going to take?
Fatha.
Not fatha. Remember, what's the scenario for a fatha? What do you have to have?
You need to have, wait,
I'll highlight it on here so you can tell. So you've got a lam with a
shadda.
Very good. So you've got a lam with a shadda, or you have a lam with a, what's this sign here?
Sukoon.
Sukoon. Yeah, good. So if you have that or that, then yes, it will be a fatha. But remember, it's not either of those. So this is a kasra here, which makes this alif also a.
Pardon?
So what would that make this alif? What stroke will it take if this is
kasra.
Kasra? Good. So read the whole word.
Ibtigha'a.
Excellent. Very good. So does that make sense now? Do you understand all of the different cases?
Yes, I understand.
Okay, that's fine. Jazakumullah. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's see. We've got, so we don't have any more examples, so that's not a problem. So again, I will get back to you about the two questions that were asked. Inshallah, I'll tell tomorrow's teacher to just go through that. But hopefully that is clear to you. We don't have this PowerPoint uploaded on the website at the moment. We may have it uploaded later on, but this PowerPoint, which we looked at yesterday, this is going to be uploaded online, inshallah. So we are making arrangements for that. So do take advantage of that when it is online. We may have this uploaded in the future, but at the moment it's not going to be uploaded. But even so, you can definitely go back to the recordings and just pause the video when you get to this page, just to recap it. But please do have a look at this rule and try and apply it in your recitation. For now, just consider it when we're looking at the rule regarding Nun Qutni. Again, the exercise that we did, that was just for you to get some practice of figuring out how to read an individual word with the correct stroke. So please carry on practicing that, and remember that on Monday, inshallah, we're going to be listening to recitations as part of your internal assessment, if you like. So the 20 rules that we've been covering in this lesson here, the 20th rule I'll just very quickly mention to you. This is actually the basis of the whole of lesson number 2. So technically we've only done 19, but this rule is regarding how to correctly pause on the end of words. So based on what stroke is being carried by the final letters, that's how you'll determine how to pause correctly. So for example here, nisa'an carries a double fatha, so tanween of fatha is going to become nisa'a, 2 seconds. Again, we're not going to cover this in too much detail because we're dedicating a whole lesson to this rule over here. So we have now covered all of the 20 rules contained in this lesson. Please do revisit the recordings, and again, the downloads are there for you to access just over here on the downloads page, and the class recordings are just there. So do take advantage of that, and inshallah in tomorrow's lesson you'll get another opportunity to do a lot more recitation practice in preparation for the assessment. So yes, please do go over those rules, and inshallah I will see you again in tomorrow's lesson. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, sorry, no. Before I do that, let me have one more student just to do our final prayer. So A5146, could you please read the final?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Could you please read the final prayer?
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم ارحمني بالقرآن العظيم واجعله لي إماما ونورا وهدى ورحمة.
Jazakallah. The translation, please.
O Allah, have mercy on me through the great Quran, and make it for me the leader, the light, the guidance, and the mercy.
Okay, Jazakumullah, and see you in tomorrow's lesson, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.